Hey, what's up guys? Today's video is about Azure Active Directory Connect, or AAD Connect for short. So we will see how to configure AAD Connect. I will put some links in the description below for the type of permissions that you need for the account that we're going to use today. And finally, we're going to synchronize our on-prem AAD objects to Office 365. But before we dive into AAD Connect, we need to do one thing. And that is to enable directory synchronization on the tenant. So let's just do that. I've opened the PowerShell window with all the prerequisites installed already to connect to PowerShell for Office 365. And if you're not sure about the prerequisites, just check the description below. I'll put a link as well. So to enable the directory synchronization on the tenant, we technically only need one commandlet to verify the status of directory sync and one commandlet to enable or disable directory sync. First, I'm gonna open the script that I've prepared already, where I have my two commandlets that I just mentioned. First, we need to connect to the tenant. As usual, like I've said in a previous video, we're gonna use the get credentials and the connect MSOL service. The second one will be to verify the status that we have on the tenant for directory synchronization. Now, it should return false because directory sync is disabled by default on the tenant. And the last one would be to set directory synchronization to true. Let's connect first. I'm gonna run those two commands there. Now we are connected, that's a good thing. And I'm gonna run the second command. So this should return false. And indeed, we can see that the result is false. And I'm gonna run the last one to set DirSync to true. Let's do that now. Yes, I want to confirm. I want to do this. And this is done. Now, let's just double check if now directory synchronization is enabled. I'm going to run this command again, and it should return true this time. And now it returns true. That's a good thing. Now it's enabled on the tenant, and we can move on and go to AAD Connect. I'm now logged onto the server where we are going to install AAD Connect. And I've already downloaded the tool from the Microsoft Download Center. Again, link in the description. And to launch the tool, you can simply right-click on it and click on Install. Or you can simply double-click on it. So it's preparing for the install. So it only took a couple of seconds, and now we can configure AAD Connect. I'm just gonna put that centered. The first thing we need to do is we need to obviously agree with the terms and conditions, and then we can click on continue. And let me just put that a little bit higher so we can see the window properly. Okay, now on this page we are presented with the choice of express settings or customize settings. The express settings that we see in here, it just gives you a brief description of what's gonna happen, but we're not gonna go for this one. We're gonna go for customize, and so we can have more flexibility on the config. I'm gonna click on customized. And here we have 4 options. First of all, you can choose a specific installation location. Maybe you do not want to install on a drive like the C drive, and you want to choose another location like a D drive or an E drive. Then, do you use a separate database server for the database that AAD Connect will install? If yes, then you specify the instance name of the SQL server where you wish to create that database. And if you're not using another SQL server separately, then you do not select this option and it will install SQL Server 2012 Express. The third option that we have in here is to use an existing service account. If you have a remote SQL server, for instance, you may need authentication, so you may want to use a managed service account, a dedicated account, and I've already created one as well. So I'm going to use this one in the config. And lastly, we have specified a custom sync groups. By default, AAD Connect creates those 4 local groups. But maybe if your company is following some naming convention, then you would probably want to create those groups before. And this is where you would need to reference them. So let's go ahead with the config. I do not want to change the installation location, but I am using a separate SQL server. So I'm just going to tick the box. If you know already the server name and the instance name, you can go ahead and just enter that here. But you also have the option to browse. So that's what I'm going to do in here. You can enter the computer name or the IP address where your SQL server resides. I'm just going to enter mine. And then I'm going to click on the search icon. And he actually found my server. So I'm going to highlight this one and click on OK. And now I need to know the instance name. So my instance name is simply AADC for AAD Connect. And I'm going to show you exactly where it is. So here is my domain controller, and I've also installed my SQL Server on it. You wouldn't do that normally, but just for the sake of RAM and space, I've installed the SQL in here. So I have SQL in here, and my instance name is just there. You can see it's on my DC1 /AADC, which is my instance name. So let's go back here, and I'm using a separate service account as well. So I'm gonna tick the box, I'm gonna scroll down, and I'm gonna enter the account. You have the possibility to use a managed service account or a domain account. Again, links in the descriptions, just refer to them and it will explain absolutely everything you have in here. And then I'm not going to actually specify any custom groups. I'm just going to leave that as the default. And then we can click on install. Next, we have the user sign-in page. This is where you choose the type of authentication for the users. The first one is the password sync. This is offering the same sign-on experience to users by synchronizing the password hash to Azure AD, which means that they use the same password as they have on-prem, but they still need to log on to Office 365 to access the services. The second one is the pass-through authentication, and I spoke about that briefly in another video, and it is still in preview at the time of recording this video, as you can see. And this is similar to the password sync, but the passwords are validated against your on-prem AAD and not Azure AD. Then you have the federation with ADFS. If you have the servers with the Active Directory Federation services in place in your infrastructure already to provide a single sign-on to your users, then this wizard will actually help you to configure the ADFS as well. And this is where the users use the same password that they have on-prem, and they do not need to sign in again when they are using Office 365. The last one is the do not configure, and it's kind of self-explanatory. So you don't want to configure any of those features because, I don't know, maybe you already have another identity provider, a third-party tool in your organization. Then we have the enable single sign-on option, and that can be used with the password sync or the pass-through authentication, and it's in preview as well, as you can see. So we are going to choose the password sync as it is selected already, and then we're going to click next. So now it's asking me to connect to Azure AD, and so I need to enter my Azure AD credentials, and in my case it's going to be my global admin that I have in Office 365. So this account is only used to make the connection to Office 365 at this stage and create the AD Sync account in Office 365. So technically you could create a separate account only for that procedures and for the tool and not use it later, but I'm not going to do that for this demo. I'm just going to use what I already have. Then I'm going to click on next. Now it's time to connect your on-prem forest, your directory. The directory type is Active Directory in my case, and for the forest, it already found it. I'm only going to click on Add Directory. And now it's asking me for the account that I want to use. So use an existing account or create a new account, but I've already created a specific account for this. I'm going to switch on to my DC, and in my accounts, I've already created an account in here, and I've given this account the correct permission for my scenario. So I'm going to use this one. And then I'm going to click on OK. Okay, the credentials were fine, no issue like that. The directory is added. Now I'm going to click on Next. Now we have a summary of the domains found in Office 365 and on-prem. And as you can see, the seattlecloud.co.uk is verified in Office 365. So if I want my users to be able to sign in, then they need to have this UPN suffix. And I've added this UPN suffix in my DC already, except for one account. So I'm going to switch over to the DC. And I've created an OU called employees in here. And all of those users, they have the correct UPN suffix, except this one. We can see what's the impact is in Office 365 after the sync. Let's go back to AAD Connect. The next we have in here below is the user principal name. And it is set already to the user principal name attribute. And Microsoft recommends to leave it as it is whenever it's possible. So we will keep the default and we are simply going to click on Next. Moving on to the domain and OU filtering, you can sync all your domains or you can be more selective if you want to. I have only one directory in here, but I do not want to synchronize absolutely everything. I'm going to select the second option. Sync selected domain and OUs, and I'm going to expand all this. And the only OUs that I want to synchronize to Office 365 are the employees OU and the demo groups OU. So I'm simply going to unselect the rest and select only those two. Then I'm going to click on Next. And now we need to identify the on-prem users. I have only one for us, so I'm going to choose the first one, which is users are represented only once across all directories. But if you are on a scenario where you have a multi-forest, then you need to select the second option and choose how the users will be matched in Azure AD. And below that, we need to select what we call the source anchor. This is very, very, very important because the source anchor must not change. If you think about someone who gets married, then the name will change. And if you think about moving the user to another forest or another domain, that will change as well. So the user principal name or the email, for instance, are not good attributes in that case. I have a simple scenario in here, so I'll stick with the object GUID, and I'm going to choose myself what attribute I want to set as a source anchor. The object GUID, fine. Now we're going to click on next. The next in line is filter the users and devices. I'm going to leave it as it is and synchronize all the users and devices. And the second option that you have in here, which is synchronize only a selected group, maybe it's mostly used for testing purposes, or maybe you want to conduct a pilot. And we're going to click on next. Now, optional features. So like it says, those are optional. If you plan on an Exchange hybrid, then you select the Exchange hybrid deployment. You can look for the interrogation mark that you see in here if you want more information. So you just hover over it and then you have some information. The password sync is already ticked and grayed out because we chose that earlier. And you've got the password right back. You have the group right back as well. The directory extension attribute is when you have your own on-prem attributes, for instance, and you want to extend the Azure AD schema. Then you select this option and you will get to another page where you can choose those specific attributes. One thing to be aware though is that some of those features that you see on this page require an Azure AD Premium subscription, which is separate from Office 365 if you only purchased Office 365. So now we're going to click on next. So now we are almost done and we are ready to configure. So we have two last options in here. Do we want to start the synchronization process as soon as we click on the install button? And yes, we want to do this. So we're going to leave that box ticked. And the second one is enable the staging mode. So the staging mode is for redundancy. With AAD Connect, you would install a second server with the exact same options that you selected on your first server, but you would not select this option if this is your first AAD Connect server. And in my case, this is my first server, so I'm not going to select this option. And I'm simply going to click on install. Now the config is complete and it took about 6 minutes to complete, and you can see on the page that you can have some more information. You click on learn more for each of those. What we have left now is just to click on exit and go to the tenant and see our users. Logging into the tenant, we can see already that we have more information with the sync, where you can see your last directory sync when it occurred, the password sync, if you have chosen the password sync like we did. And we're going to go and see if our users are here. Users, active users. And yes, we can see that we have our users in here, and you can see as well the sync type. Is the user in the cloud or is the user sync with your Active Directory? You can see the difference there on the right side of it. Now remember that we had one user which didn't have the correct UPN suffix with the domain that is verified in Office 365. It actually synchronized, that's fine, but you can see already that it says .onmicrosoft.com in here, so it didn't give this user the domain that we verified in Office 365. Compared to the other ones, we can see the other ones there, they have the seattlecloud.co.uk. So this user, for instance, will not be able to log into Office 365 using the seattlecloud.co.uk. And I also forgot to mention at the beginning, but I had another user which I put as disabled in on-prem AD, and you can see the difference in here because it says that the user is blocked in Office 365, meaning that this user will not be able to sign in Office 365 because it is actually blocked. I also had some groups synchronizing. So let's see if they are here. And yes, they are here. So I have my 2 security groups. That's it for today, guys. I hope you liked the video. Don't forget to subscribe or even put a comment. And I'll see you later. É proibido cochilar.